this is going to be a super bumpy video because you're on my new hook thing up here. And this one just like shakes and rattles and bumps at all costs. So I'm super sorry. We got a big tank in the back for the reptiles and such. And I look terrible because I'm not feeling too great today. So yeah, it's gonna be quite the day. But I just wanted to quick do a fun video. If this is shaking way too much, I'm going to try to steady it with a hand, which is what I was doing with my other thing. But yeah, we will see how this works. So I wanted to do a quick video, so I'm going to jump into this. Basically, my ex, who is super abusive, I've given you a bunch of updates and videos about him, so you all know what I'm talking about, hopefully. I'm going to try to put my hand on here to steady it a little bit. Alright. He had a car that he said was his. It turns out it was his dad's car. But he screwed it up. And he needed like 4 brand new tires and a bunch of really big, serious things changed. We're talking like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, like between the tires and everything. The estimate was like $1,000, like a lot of money. And that was if nothing else needed to be tweaked along the way, which there were other things that needed to be tweaked. So that happened, and then he got a ticket for OWI, and then yeah, just like a bunch of stuff like that. Like it was a bunch of little things adding up where he was just racking up money after money after money. Money he needed, basically. So he was pressuring me to find a way because I had stuff budgeted really carefully with work. I was the one working because he was just an emotional mess and blah blah blah, and just being him, being extremely abusive. I was terrified to not do what he asked. So we ended up needing like a ton of money up front for that, and I was like, well, this car's old, it's not really nice, why don't we just get a different car? I didn't know it was his dad's car, so I wouldn't have just dumped all the money in it if I knew his dad was going to end up just showing up and taking it, because it's his car and no shit. But he did it after, of course, I had everything fixed and spent all the money in cash on everything, and brand new tires and brand new parts and everything else in the world that needed to be done. Every little tweak thing, every little extra expense was done to get this car perfectly fine. But anyways, I needed the money, and I was like, well, we can budget this in, to our bills, and we can get it done. And he insisted, no, we need to get it done now. This needs to be a now thing. And I was like, well, a now thing? Like, why a now thing? That's not right, I guess. Not that it's not right, but why now? You know what I mean? So anyways, we were arguing back and forth about this because I didn't want it to be a now thing. I wanted to budget it, and the way I had it budgeted out, I figured that two paychecks, so a month out, we would be able to get it done without being behind on any of our bills, anything else. So that wasn't good enough. So he was pressuring me to do a lot of stuff, from illegal things to everything, because he also, at the time, I did not, but at the time he had a drug habit I didn't know about. So he was claiming he needed, $100 a day here and there for oh, well, I owe my mom some money, or it was for an old bill for the dog, when really it was not. It was for his habit, which at this time I didn't know about. So he was panicked when he heard $1,000 needs to go somewhere else. Plus, it's not his car, and he didn't tell me that, and it was just a wreck. So he's pushing me to literally do anything, sell prescriptions, anything I could. He's literally sitting there and finding people online to essentially that he wanted me to go and hang out with, go on a date with, for money. And he's pushing me to do all this stuff, and I am just like, let's budget it in and wait 1 month, come on. Or we could even do all of the internal work in 2 weeks, and then in the next 2 weeks fix all the tires, or vice versa. Let's be a reasonable adult, It's somebody, like, in his situation. I wasn't using drugs and being very manipulative and abusive, so I wasn't in that situation. So, that wasn't happening. It was just fight after fight after fight. And finally, he says to me, basically, he found people he wanted me to sleep with. And at the time, I was like, hell no. I'll get into exactly what he tried to pressure me to do and stuff in a different story time. But it turned out where the story came up of, my ex-girlfriend was a stripper, exotic dancer. At the time, I was working life coaching and horse training, and I would go and visit her all the time at work. And so I was really upset and fed up with him, and he was just being the biggest asshole in the world, just pushing and pushing stuff. So we went and we hung out at the strip club, basically. And he's not a fan of strippers at all. He's not a fan of looking at women. So that wasn't his thing. And that's fine. That's doable, fine. And we were there and talking and stuff. And there's the male review downstairs and the females upstairs. We ended up going to both. And he had a lot of fun, actually, at the male review. It was like a relaxed time. It was one of the only times we hung out and actually had an okay time with each other. And then we went upstairs after the male show was done, and we went up there, and Max was there, and blah, 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 and the boss was like, hey, you should work here. And I laughed. And to him, that was the golden ticket. He's seeing these women get lots of money thrown at him. He's watching what the guys make a lot more than the females. So he was just like, that's perfect. So he was like, well, I really don't want you doing, she starts talking to me like I'm actually going to do it. It's like, I really don't want you doing this, but, we need the money, blah, blah, blah. But, like, he's talking like it's the worst idea in the world, but then keeps bringing up why I have to essentially take this job. And I was just sitting there like, I'm somebody who life coaches and does horse training and animal rescue. Like, this isn't anything I do. The closest I ever did to, like, a physical job was I used to work at the sports and fitness store, and outside of there I helped corner fights with a MMA fighter who was training a bunch of people. He was professional, and a lot of his people were semi-pro. I helped him, and then I helped just fitness train people, and that was, I guess, a more physical job, but, like, not like a naked job. Anyways, sorry if this is super bumpy, but it's killing my arm to, like, this one's, like, up high, so it's harder to do. Anyways, so, Jesus. So, that was why I was just like, this is crazy for me. I've, like, taken a pole dance class for fitness, and we were, like, fully clothed, and, it wasn't an exposing thing. So, essentially, he's sitting there and just harping on me like, well, I don't want you to do this, I'd be super jealous, blah, 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 but, you could probably only work 2 or 3 days and quit, and then have the money, more than enough money to pay for everything and have some extra. So I ended up taking the job, and he ended up, at first, he didn't even want to see me do it. He kept acting reverse psychology, kept acting like it's the worst thing in the world. And then he was sitting there and trying to manipulate me. Like, at first it was just, like, he liked to see the guys because he liked men, and that's fine. So he would come along the days that the guys were working, and it was interesting. It was super interesting. And then he would come upstairs and just harass a bunch of the girls. He was an ass. He would never want to even be nice or hand them $1. I would hand him my money, obviously, because I was afraid of this guy. Like, at this time, he had already really, really, really hurt me physically quite a few times. He had not sexually assaulted me. This was before I even had my second daughter. This was a long time ago. So this was before all of that. But it was a crazy situation. And a lot of the girls at this specific place were on drugs. A lot of the girls were nice. But I was very sober, and that was not anything for me, and I was just not loving it. And it was high stress. I made so much money. It was unbelievable just being there very briefly. And then he basically, I would come home, I'd be feeling miserable, and he would sit there and take it all. And if I even said, like, I need $10 to throw in the car for gas, I would get beaten. And so I was going to work with sprained ankles, handprints on my face, you know, and my neck's so sore from being grabbed, because that's his go-to thing, is grabbing my neck. It was ridiculous. I just felt like crap the whole time, and it was like, it wasn't very long that I did it, but it was like I had this guy beating the crap out of me, and a lot of the girls were very onto it. They'd see me dancing and all, and they'd be like, you are like stick skinny, and you've got obvious, so you can see, like, they could see like I had a shoe print on my back one time, and just you could see where I had a rib that was broken, and they're like, that's obviously this guy, like, he comes and sits in the corner and glares at you, and if you're acting too friendly towards a guy, he sits there and like purposely like pinches you or does something when you walk by, like, to hurt you, and is just mean. So it was terrifying, but I was so afraid not to do it, because if I even was like, hey, I'm just thinking of taking a day off, he'd be like, well, you know, I hate that you're doing this, because I don't want other people looking at you. But then he'd turn around and have a drink or two and start just really pummeling me, like, to put it bluntly, because how dare I not think about our family and bringing money in and blah blah blah, even though I had another job, and it was just ridiculous. It was a horrible experience. I was so stressed out, and I felt from the actual dancing, like, there was so many times where, like, I'll have to do some crazy story time stuff, because I've had some wild stuff happen, like guys try to get completely naked in the back room, and people offer to take me home, like, it was crazy stuff. But at the time and where I was at mentally, I was so afraid and so upset that I wasn't getting anything out of it. Like, to me, it was just miserable, and I would come home just terrified, because I knew every time after that he would just beat the hell out of me, because I had to show my body to someone else. But if I didn't show up, or if I, you know, wasn't going to be there, then it was the end of the world too, and awful. So this is kind of just the opening story time to a bunch of story times about it. But that's how my ex got me to strip for money. And it was, like I said, it was interesting. After I had my second daughter and things were going really rough, this was when I was already working on a safety plan to get out, and he was, you know, bugging me and pushing me for money again. He wanted me to go back and work there, not at the same club, but he wanted me to strip again. And at the same time, he was so afraid of everything else that he was, like, trying to convince me to, like, actually call some of these guys who wanted me to work, like, privately for them and do that kind of stuff just to bring in money. But then he was going back and forth between, oh yeah, I would like you to dance again, that made so much money and they liked you, blah blah blah. And then he'd quick backtrack and be like, well, no, I don't want you to do that, because, you know, I don't think I could be there all the time because of, you know, like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to watch all the time and blah blah blah. And he was being back and forth. So I ended up going to a different club very, very briefly, just to prove I could. Because I was like, you know what, you're pushing me to do this horrible illegal stuff, like prostitution and stuff that's just not right. And then you're sitting here basically threatening me that if I don't find a way to pull in the kind of money I was, you're going to hurt me. But if I do find a way to pull in the money I was, like, it was just back and forth. It was crazy. Like, you're gonna either way, like, hurt me, or either way threatening me. And then it was a reverse psychology of, well, no, I'm not gonna make the kind of money I did before. I've had 2 kids now. I'm not where I was physically, and I definitely wasn't. I had preeclampsia so bad and so many things that had happened that my body wasn't where it was. And he had at this time really done something physically to me that hurt me badly and left some really bad scars. So yeah, I wasn't. But I was like, fine, you know what? I'm going to prove that I can actually do this, and I can prove a point, and, you know, like, someone would actually want to look at me and talk to me and whatever else. Like, and it was one of those things where, you know, the second he was like, oh, well, I don't really want you doing that. I was just saying that for money. And then he was like, well, it's not the same place, so if you have to do that, then, you know, I guess. I'm not really for it, but I guess. It was one of those things where, you know, he's just a piece of shit. To be blunt, I'm sorry. I don't like talking down to people or anything like that, but it's true. So that is a story of how we kind of got into everything, and how we you know, how I ended up dancing, even though I really did not want to whatsoever. I'm going to do a few story times of how it was while dancing, just because there's a lot of stuff that happened during, a lot of stories that were what happened while we were there type of thing, and it's interesting. Like, I had a I had a couple of stories that happened. One was super interesting that I want to tell you guys. It was just, I can't give names, but it was a bigger, more known person who came into the club and was just causing all kinds of hell and being hilariously belligerent. Then I had another story time of just a few really crazy stories. I wasn't there long or anything, but it was something I definitely didn't want to do, and being there, even impromptu, kind of was crazy. Like, it was just something that, the 2 times I did it, it was such a, well, he needed money and he took all my money from it. I never got anything from it. I don't even know what I made half the time. I'd shove tips in my purse and then come home, and the most he'd ever leave is like $5, something very small, and then always have something he needed me to pick up in the mornings. So it was very forced, and then just constant reverse psychology of, I hate other people looking at you, I hate that you're doing this, but at the same time, it's like, I've said a million times that I don't like this, and it's like, oh, what about the money? What about this? What about that? So it was very weird and corrupt and not good. So I'm very glad to, have gotten to a point in life where now I'm safe and away from things like that. And like I said, it was short, but it was, when being forced to do something like that, it was intensely awful, because it was just so vulnerable and so awful and so forced and just such a bad feeling. And then later on in life, I did, this is kind of what made me want to tell this story time, is very, like, later on in life. This is very recently. I had walked in and went into one of the 2 clubs that I worked at, because I wanted to go there on my terms. I wanted to go there in a sense where it wasn't somebody sitting in a corner watching me, and I knew based on how many tips I got, it's better for us financially, but the worse, I was going to get beaten later. And it was awful, so I wanted to walk in there just on my terms. And they had an event going on, which was interesting. They had an event going on that was this, like, Miss whatever, was just an interesting little thing, and they asked if I wanted to come and do it, even though I wasn't one of, like, the dancers there, like, if I wanted to give it a try again. It was the next day, and I was like, yeah, I do, because I want to be able to get up and do this stuff and feel confident in myself. And especially after being assaulted, I've never done anything even kind of like this. Like, I've even, like, mentioned, like, since, a very long time ago, in September of last year, getting assaulted. I've only, normally, like, with my BDSM lifestyle, I'm a very sexual person, and since then, I've only, like, had good sex twice, and then, like, screwed around 1 time other than those 2 times, so 3 times total, and that time we stopped and didn't even go through with everything. So it's been, like, I have not been comfortable in my own body, especially with, like, the stab wound. Like, it makes me really insecure. I really don't like it. Like, I know it's being way too real, but it just makes me really insecure, and, like, I think about it all the time. And now I've gone down weight because I've actually really, like, I've always been a healthy vegan. I always work out, but I've been really kicking my butt to be back and really, really healthy. I'm gonna get a video up about that this week too. But it really, like, I don't know, it made me super insecure and super upset, because I just felt like I wasn't myself. I felt like I wasn't, like, the way I am. Like, I look in the mirror and it's not me, and it made me upset. So I wanted to go up, and it was, like, not the typical, like, oh, you go and you just strip and then you do whatever. Like, it was fun. It was like you wore different outfits and themes and did different funny events, like little funny competition things, and it was like a way to be confident and feel pretty, and, like, people might still look at me and not think I'm ugly or gross, but to also go up and, like, have fun and know that, like, I'm not gross, and, like, my body's still pretty even though it's hurt. Like, I might have some scars, but it's because I got through something really awful that my ex did. And I didn't ask for this, but I can still embrace it and be happy. So it was interesting. So I wanted to tell kind of the story of why I danced in the first place. It was very much so because I had to, because I didn't have an option. And it was awful when I did that, because it was just such a toxic lifestyle, and just knowing like I needed to make money because otherwise I'd get beaten, but if I made money I'd get beaten. It was just awful. It was just really hard. And then coming at it later, like, it was just a horrible experience. But a lot of the people weren't what you think they are, and it wasn't the worst thing. So I wanted to open it up with why I hated the experience and why it was scary and terrible. But then I wanted to open that up to do story times about stuff that, like, crazy stuff that happened. Like, I had a guy who literally pulled his thing out in the back room, and I had to, like, immediately scream for security. It was crazy. I've had guys, like, passing out on drugs. Like, it was the weirdest stuff. But I've also had rich, nice guys of status come there and be really respectful and not do anything bad and blah, blah, blah. It's been up and down and left and right, but there's so many things that I learned on how these girls have to function, because I've always had, like, a business or a job that I worked that was, like, secure. Like, I took professional riding lessons for so many years that I always had that. And I had the personal training and the life coaching. I always had something that I could go to, and some girls don't. And then seeing when I was in a situation where it was like my ex needed cash fast and I didn't realize why, and so I was just terrified and needed to work for money. Being in that situation, like, it was scary. And I get it, because some girls don't have another option, and that was really sad to see. So I feel like I could not only give advice on, like, if you are in that situation, how to make it work and how to be safe, but I could also tell some fun story times and also some very, very learning lessons that I learned. So I just wanted to actually open up and, like, explain that this is why in the first place I danced ever, and kind of open that door up, because I'm transparent with you guys and I wanted to be honest with you guys. And I want to be able to actually tell the stories of stuff I learned while being there, because I've, especially now, just randomly doing the one event there, there's a lot of girls that own it, and a lot of women that work there that, like, they have really great other jobs. One of them's a counselor, and we talk a lot because of the life coaching, and we get along. And we were talking, and, you know, we had it together, and then these other girls walked by, and they were like, man, I don't even know how to function in the morning, and I'm, like, running here trying to get ready, and I just feel like such a wreck after. And there's so many things I've learned about how to handle it and work it and do it correctly, and how to handle it and work it and feel miserable. And I felt like maybe I could really help some people to, if they're thinking about doing it, make the right choice to do it or not to do it. And also just really to give some tales if you guys are already in it. But also to state, like, don't do it for someone else, because no matter how pretty I was back then, I was in amazing shape in the first time I did it. And just the pressure and how much I was getting hurt just for doing my job, essentially, that I didn't even want to be doing. Like, it was crazy, the things it led into, and the crazy stuff, like the people that, like, I met and talked to and all after that, and my ex pushed me to keep talking to. It was really wild. So I want to actually tell you guys all the full story times about that and everything. So I'm going to for sure do a video about that very soon. I think today I'm going to try to get one of those out, at least one, because there's so many that I want to get out. But this was at least like, hey, here's why I started doing it. Here's what got me into it, and here's why I actually want to, you know, I want to own it. Like, there's things about it that weren't bad, and there's things about it that were awful. So I just want to at least get that out there. I love you guys, and I know this was all over the place, but for me, I just want to sum it up with, I had to do it. As much as he a million times over was like, I hate this, I don't want you doing this. The second, sorry, there was just a fuzzy that, like, floated on there. The million times that he said he didn't want me to, then it would come back with, oh, well, you have to do this because we need this, we need that. And it was very much so something I had to do. And I went back to it, you know, when I was getting the safety plan to leave, because he was pushing me to get more money, and he wanted to live his not sober lifestyle and get back into things, and I wasn't doing anything. And I was like, you know what, fine. Like, I want to feel like someone could still want to look at me, because that's what he kept saying, no one's going to want me now, whatever. And I barely did it at that point, but I want to actually be able to open this up and tell stories on how, like, I owned it, how I embraced it, how I got through things and did things, and what was great about it and what sucked about it, and just everything. I want to really be able to get out here and talk to you guys and be honest. So I wanted to open this video up just so you guys know. I don't feel any shame from it. I was still literally doing my really normal job, and I'm doing a really normal job now. And I don't see anything wrong with people who dance. I feel like, just for my personal beliefs, if I was in a really serious relationship, depending on the kind of person I'm with, if I'm with like a really serious dominant, like, most of the time we don't go to like strip clubs and do stuff like that. We don't want to look at other people that way or watch porn or whatever. But if I'm with somebody like a very close friend and I'm single and stuff like that, like Alex is my best friend, and like I would absolutely have no problem grabbing, just grabbing a glass of water or something, like not a real big drinker or anything, but anything, or like a glass of wine after a long hard night, like whatever it may be at a strip club. I wouldn't mind that at all, and tip the girls and whatever, watch them for a second. With like someone who's my best friend, I wouldn't mind doing that at all. So I wanted to at least get that out there and talk openly about it, because I think it is wrong when you're in like a committed one-on-one relationship and you really have that dynamic. And then of course I wouldn't dance, and I wouldn't want my person to look at dancers, nor would I want to look at them, because I love women and I get it. So I get that. But when you're in just a calm, basic lifestyle and you're not with someone serious, I think there's nothing wrong with it, and it's fine. And I really, really think that some of the stuff I learned while being there, because I was being forced to be there in the beginning, and then coming back and doing that one event on my own later in life, like, I think having a platform to talk about that could actually help a lot of people to understand what the bullshit about it is, but what the good things about it are, and what you can learn, what you can get from it. So I hope this helps somebody, and that you guys like these videos. Please, I know I've never ever asked for likes or dislikes or anything, but if you want to see more about this, I have no problem going into like some very, very personal story times of guys that tried to solicit me, and things that were really personal, and then things that I learned while being, in that kind of lifestyle. So if you want to see that, please, as much as I'm not a ask for likes person, give it a thumbs up, so I know you want to see this. So I don't want to spam my channel with like 2 or 3 more videos mixed in with the other regular content. I don't want to spam you guys with that kind of stuff if you guys really didn't enjoy this video. So yeah, I love you guys, and I want to actually make a difference with the things I say. I want people to know they're not alone, and to not feel shame in what they do, and to know that they can have a voice. So I love you guys, and I really thank you guys for being here. Your support helps me so much, and it helps me to be confident, and I've got a lot of updates about the legal situation going on. Nothing bad right now. So I've got some good updates. I'm going to do an update video on that. And like I said, if you guys like this, then I'm going to get some really interesting, 1 or 2 hilarious story times, but I've got 1 or 2 really meaningful ones that I think could help too. And if you guys don't want to see it, then I won't do it. I love you guys. Seriously, thank you for giving me an outlet. Oh, and a really quick thing I want to throw in at the end of this, if you guys are even still watching after 29 minutes, because I want this to be uncut and raw and real. But I have 10 more sessions now, or 10 more weeks, excuse me. Not 10 more sessions, 10 more weeks of physical therapy that got approved. So as much as that is a long time, it's going all the way out to June. I'm excited because I love my physical therapist, and she's saved my life. So I wanted to do an update about that kind of stuff, because that means the world to me. And yes, knowing that I need that much more help and I've been that hurt is sad, but knowing that I can get that help and get better is amazing. So I wanted to let you guys know that I was really happy about that, and I want to do a video about that too. And I have an eating kind of video I want to film and put up here too. So I will get that out soon. I love you guys.